everybody, Amy from raisingarrows.net here, and today I want to talk about the trend of TradWives on YouTube and TikTok and other places like that. You might think off the bat that I would totally identify with that world and that I would be excited to see people going back to traditional values and such. In a lot of ways, I am. But unfortunately, I feel like the TradWife is a stereotype that is almost like, the women back 10 years ago or so, where everybody was going back to Little House on the Prairie or Regency England or something along those lines, where we became sort of a caricature of women throughout the ages. And we just latched onto a certain time frame. And I say we as like kind of the conservative Christian world. We latched on to different ideals and different ages, different years in the past, where we viewed them as being special, and places where those gender roles were much more pronounced. And we latched onto those as being the ideal. And we tried to mimic those and become those women. Unfortunately, and fortunately, that's not where we live. I don't know if people were sent back to those times, if they would really see them with the rose-colored glasses they tend to have when it comes to looking back in the past. There wasn't indoor plumbing, there wasn't refrigeration, and on and on and on. And I think the TradWife, at least what I have seen, is reminiscent a little bit of maybe the 1950s more than anything. At least that's kind of what I've seen. And I haven't spent a lot of time digging because initially it just wasn't my thing right off the bat. Now, it would have been my thing in my 20s and maybe my early 30s. And that's because I was still searching for an identity as a homemaker. I'd not really come into my own. I really didn't know. I kind of knew what I was doing, but I kind of didn't know what I was doing. And so that world would have appealed to me because it would have had a set of rules that would have been useful to me, I would have probably thought. However, it would have put me into a stereotype that I would not have been able to keep up, especially with baby after baby after baby coming. And I probably would have just drowned in all of it. Because what I have noticed of what I've watched of TradWives is some of them have no children. Some of them have 2 children at most. I have not seen anybody who has like a big family. And some of that is because I just don't know that you can keep up that facade, or that you can do a bunch of videos like that with a lot of kids. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to sit down and I'm just going to talk this through, some of my thoughts on this. And I could be wrong and I could be crazy and I don't know, but I thought, I just want to share my heart on this and why I won't be producing any TradWife videos. And it's not because I think traditional values and traditional gender roles are wrong or stupid or whatever. That is not where I'm coming from. I actually do think that gender roles are incredibly important. They are God ordained. I do believe that there are things to rejoice in, to be excited about, to celebrate amongst men and amongst women, and that we are not the same people. I don't want to be the same people. I am really, really glad that we're not the same. And if you look back into Genesis, you will see there that the word helper, when God says it's not good that man's alone, he needs a helper. Helper is the word Ezer, E-Z-E-R. And from my research, what I found is that the bulk majority of the time that word is used, it's used in relation to God helping his people. So it's a strong word. It is not a weak, flimsy word. And what I see when I look at TradWives is that they are building a lot of their gender identity on flimsy roles, things that are kind of superficial, if you will. It might be something like, I'm dressed in this particular outfit and I have an apron on. that's great. If an apron helps you be strong in your job, which I would say a lot of times it does. Now, I got to tell you, my apron is pretty utilitarian because I'm cooking things and I am making messes and it is on my apron. So I have an apron on as a utilitarian thing because I have a job to do. It is not frilly and fancy. It could be, but I would have to be willing to say, if that got dirty, it's okay. I cannot be wearing an apron just for the sake of wearing an apron. I have to be wearing an apron because I have a job to do. That's it. Not because I want to look a certain way. You get what I'm saying? So it seems like the TradWife movement kind of looks a certain way. And there's a lot of frills and a lot of extras that are not really conducive to doing your job as a woman. And that is something that I think we have lost somewhere along the way, is this notion that we have a job to do as women and we need to be prepared and equipped and strong and courageous. And if we are buying into this like idea or ideal from books that we've read or from movies that we've watched, or even from what other people are saying across the internet, here are the rules, here's what you should look like, here's how you should go about things. I think that we tend to lose the unique identity that the Lord gave us. So for instance, and you guys, I say this constantly, so you ought to be used to me saying this, but you need to respect the unique identity and the unique family and the unique circumstances that the Lord has put you in. You are not going to look like any other family out there. So I talk about this a lot when you're homeschooling and the circumstances that surround your homeschool world or your homemaking. It really can't look like anybody else's. Sure, you might resemble somebody else, but because you have unique circumstances, so say your husband's in the military like mine is, so my circumstances are very different from someone whose husband works from home. Those are two very different animals, and so my job as a military wife is going to look different from your job as a wife to a husband who stays at home and works from the home. So if we take this TradWife model and we look at it for face value, oftentimes what you're going to see is a husband who works away from the home. She's there 8 to 5 or whatever. She's doing certain chores. She oftentimes does not seem to have children around, but maybe she does. Maybe she's homeschooling there as well. A lot of times what you're going to see on YouTube as well is going to be a ideal day, not a typical day by any means, but an ideal day. And if you read my posts on my blog, they're labeled under DITL, Day in the Life, but they're the Large Family Homeschool Life posts. And I've done a couple of YouTube videos here as well, where I just walk you through 5 days out of our week and what that looks like. You will find that I have to go with the flow. I have to move with the circumstances. My days do not look like I get up and I clean this and that and I make all these great meals and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't look like that because that is not the circumstances I've been given. Now, do I try to make sure that my family is fed as nutritiously as possible? Absolutely. There are days when I do much better with that. And then there's days when I don't do so great. There are things that I have to take care of because of my husband's job. There's things that are required of me because my mom is getting ready to move in with us. And so I have all these circumstances that wouldn't fit in the TradWife label if we were just going off of what you see online. Now, if we're going to talk about I'm a traditional homemaker, yes, I probably do fall into that. I stay at home. Now, I do have a blog and podcast and YouTube channel, absolutely. And I do those in my spare time. That's not my full-time gig. So yes, I stay at home. I homeschool the children. I clean my own home. I don't have somebody come in and do that. I cook my own meals. Also, do not have somebody come in and do that. However, if I am ever a multimillionaire, that is going to be the first thing that I do. They're going to cook everything and they're going to clean it all up because I don't enjoy that. But anyway, that's just a little side note there. I don't enjoy cooking. I enjoy the fruits of my labor. I enjoy the satisfaction that I get from actually putting a meal on the table, but the act of it is not something that is joyful to me. And I don't know, maybe it comes from having cooked 3 meals a day plus snacks for 27 years. I don't know, maybe I've lost my mojo. But all that said, I do fit into, what you would see as a traditional homemaker. But I think we have in our heads this idea that traditional homemaking only looks like this set of things. And then we feel like a failure if we don't manage to do all those things. And so the few videos that I have watched about traditional homemaking actually do not inspire me at all. And I think that's because I have gotten old enough now that I see that that is not what my life has ever looked like. And when I was really busy trying to fit myself into a box, I wasn't happy. My husband wasn't even happy because he wasn't getting the help that he actually needed. The thing that I was created for, he wasn't getting either. And I was not getting any satisfaction because guess what? I wasn't doing a very good job of actually helping my husband. My husband has a different mission than your husband does, to use military terms. And actually, that word Azer is a military term as well. So I really identify with that. My husband and I are battle buddies. We have different roles, but we are seeing the same mission. We are working on the same mission. And when I am trying to work over here on this mission that God did not create me for, He created me to work with my husband that direction. And I'm over here trying to be like little Susie Homemaker, what I think little Susie Homemaker ought to look like. I'm not necessarily fulfilling my helper role. It's kind of like having a vacuum cleaner that doesn't work very well, just doesn't suck anything up. You've got the vacuum cleaner, you're using the vacuum cleaner, you're trying to clean your carpets, but it's not doing the job and you're very dissatisfied with it. And the vacuum cleaner is a little dissatisfied too. That's how I feel. I'm like that vacuum cleaner who does not do my job properly because that's not my job. My job is to be my husband's battle buddy. My job is to be his helper. My job is to work on that mission, not some TradWife mission. That's not my mission. So I think when we just get wrapped around the axle about labels and we try to label everything, we are in a very labeled universe right now. It seems like that our culture likes to label everything. We don't need to label everything. We need, though, to see our job as a helper to be something that's actually useful, something that is strong, something that is worthy, something that works hard. It's not a fluffy, frilly, my hair looks great today kind of thing. It's just not. If you can do your job with your hair all nice and your makeup on and a cute little apron on, great, more power to you. It's probably not going to be how I do it, and that's okay. That's okay because I don't need to fit into a box. I need to be the woman that God created me to be. And yes, I am married, so therefore I also have a mission that matches with my husband's, and our mission is totally different from yours. And so this whole TradWife thing, I guess it just kind of has me fussy about things, a little grumpy about stuff, because I do feel like it creates an ideal that is not necessarily real, not necessarily attainable, and not necessarily very helpful. And that is where women tend to kind of fall down on the job. We're looking for this purpose and we want it to look like something specific, and we want it to be something that we can like look at somebody else and kind of match ourselves up, compare ourselves, if you will. We really like to compare ourselves and, do I have my makeup done just as good as she does? Do I have the cute little outfit? Am I making the beds like she does? Am I cooking the meals like she does? We're looking in the wrong place for our values, for our role. We are looking in the wrong place for our encouragement and for our self-worth even. If you think that you have to look a certain way and you have to do things in a certain order and you have to have certain things and your house has to look a certain way, you may be looking for your worth in the world. And even though the TradWife movement seems really not worldly because it's not following what's typical of culture, it can be very worldly just the same because it's a stereotype. It's not individualized enough. I hate boxes and I hate labels because they don't take into account the individual. And so I would just encourage you today that you don't need a label like traditional wife. You don't need a label even that says homemaker. Your label is daughter of the king, helper to your husband, and get on mission. Hurry up and get on mission because you're wasting a whole bunch of time comparing yourself with someone else trying to be someone else. So, my friends, just relish in the fact that you are a woman, relish in the fact that you are a helper, relish in the fact that you are supposed to be strong and courageous and brave and on mission. And quit looking around you, comparing yourself with others and trying to do other people's work. Do your work. Do what God has given you to do. And you will find so much more fulfillment when you stop trying to be somebody else and you start leaning into who the Lord created you to be and how that fits with your husband and the mission that the two of you have together. Become his battle buddy. Become a strong sidekick. Not the sidekick that nobody remembers, not the sidekick that everybody goes, "Oh, boy, he was just extra trouble to bring along." Be the sidekick that makes things easier, like the oxen pulling the cart, the two of you working together for the same mission. Don't be over here trying to be somebody else. Work with your husband, work with the job that God gave you. And I just think that is way, way, way more important than slapping a label on yourself that says you're a trad wife. So there is my 5.5 cents for you on this topic. I would love to have more conversation about this. Perhaps I'm wrong. Like I said, haven't watched a lot of these videos because they sort of irritate me, but I would love to hear if you feel like you have been encouraged by these. But I'd like you to really dig deep and think about, have you been encouraged to do the job that God gave you to do specifically, or have you been encouraged to just do a job that fits with a stereotype? So that's just my thoughts there. I hope you guys have a wonderful week.